Hello there, friends. So I've been streaming a lot of Pokemon Emerald Rogue on my channel lately, and it's been a lot of fun. I have a lot of viewers that come to the streams that aren't necessarily big Pokemon fans, though. They played one of the early games and have good memories from that and stuff, but they don't really know what all goes into a Pokemon battle, or what makes a Pokemon different from another besides the typing, stuff like that. And that's fine. But this video is just going to be like a Pokemon 101 video for you guys. I think it'll help you guys understand what's going on in my Emerald Rogue streams better, and I think it's just interesting stuff too. Pokemon's actually pretty cool once you get to learn how it works, and I'm gonna cut a lot of the inane mathy bullshit out of this too, so you don't get bored to death. But first up, we're gonna look at the type chart real quick. Don't click away from the video. I'm not gonna make you memorize the type chart right now, guys. I just want to talk about it for a second. So this is the type chart. Don't get overwhelmed. Now, I think everyone knows that different types are good against others and super effective and not very effective and so on. I just want to make the point that the type chart is not all that matters in Pokemon. The way a lot of my viewers talk about the game in the chat and stuff is, to me, it just kind of sounds like some of them think that knowing what types are good against others is the main game, and then it just comes down to like understanding the types more than your opponent, and the chess battle is like that understanding. But that's not the case at all. The type chart is actually just like the bare minimum requirement to playing the real game. And that doesn't mean you have to like make flashcards and study it and stuff. The best way to learn the type chart is just to play a lot of Pokemon. You're gonna mess up, you'll use like Earthquake on a bug type, expecting it to do normal damage, and then you're gonna get pissed off when it's not very effective. And you'll remember that moment forever when it leads to you losing the battle, right? You're gonna be like, why the fuck would a bug resist ground? And I don't know either, but it does. Fuck you, that's why. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's look at Azumarill here. So Azumarill was a Pokemon that I used on my successful Gen 2 challenge run in Emerald Rogue recently. Some of the people that I'm mostly making this video for might remember it from that run, so that's why I decided to choose it. And it's just a really simple Pokemon that is good for explaining what I'm trying to explain here. This website's called Pokemon Showdown. It's the best way to play competitive Pokemon singles against other people. And it's also the best way to make custom Pokemon sets and look at all the stats and all that kind of stuff. So that's why we're using Pokemon Showdown. We're going to explore this page a bit and break down what makes a Pokemon what it is. So first we'll start with the stats. There are 6 stats in Pokemon. There's the HP stat, and that's just going to be how much HP points your Pokemon has. There's the attack stat, which increases the amount of damage that is done by physical attacks by the Pokemon. There's the defense stat, which just affects the Pokemon's resistance to physical attacks. There's the special attack stat, which determines how much damage a Pokemon does with special attacks. Now, special attacks are attacks like Hydro Pump, Flamethrower, things that don't involve one Pokemon like physically touching the other. So like a normal attack would be like Tackle or Brick Break or High Jump Kick, things where there's contact between the Pokemon. And a special attack is like Energy Beams, Elemental Blast, Water Gun, stuff like that, okay? And different Pokemon specialize in different ones, and then there's some that can do a mix of both. So special defense is just going to be your resistance to those special attacks. And finally, speed. Speed determines which Pokemon gets to move first on a turn. And so in Pokemon, both players choose moves at the same time. Then the Pokemon with the higher speed stat gets to use their move first. Now each Pokemon has its God-given base stats. That's what you see here on the left. This is Azumarill's base stats. Every Azumarill starts out with just these base stats, okay? You can go to a site like this. This is Pokemon DB. This is my favorite Pokemon website. And you can just see the base stats listed here, and then the base stat total is 420. 420 is a pretty low base stat total, but Azumarill is still a really good Pokemon. We're going to talk about why later. But yeah, it's also shown here in Showdown. Now there's a few ways that these base stats can be slightly changed for each Pokemon. Those ways are Natures, EVs, and IVs. So Natures are the easiest. We can just set our Nature here. Basically, Natures are just a 10% increase and a 10% decrease to 2 stats. So for Azumarill, most of the time you want an Adamant Nature. This gives it a 10% increase to its attack stat and a minus 10% decrease to its special attack stat. The reason this one's good for Azumarill is Azumarill doesn't really use special attacks. I know it has a higher special attack stat here than its attack stat. We're gonna go over the reason it wants to attack later. But yeah, so that's just pretty easy to understand. Most of the time, you're going to be picking a nature that either like increases an attack stat and lowers the attack stat it doesn't use, like Adamant or Modest here, or maybe something that increases its speed stat and lowers an attack stat it doesn't use, like Timid lowers their Pokemon's attack stat and increases its speed, something like that. You very rarely use the ones that don't do anything, like Docile, Hardy, Quirky, etc. Those just don't do anything. You very rarely choose that one. There's a few specific cases you don't need to worry about, okay? So that's nature. We're just going to leave it on Adamant for Azumarill. Most of the time, you can just Google the Pokemon and find out what other people do for your nature. And then EVs and IVs, they are both factors that further modify Pokemon stats, but it is a ton of information, and y'all are going to tune out on me. If you really want to know the ins and outs of EVs and IVs, I'll leave a link in the description for more information on those. But for a lot of ROM hacks and just playing the regular games on your own and stuff, you can just ignore them. For Emerald Rogue, the main game I'm going to be playing on my channel, you can just ignore them. Here on Pokemon Showdown, they're just sliders like this that you can change how you want, you know? So they make them really easy on Pokemon Showdown to do, but in the normal games and stuff, they're a huge pain in the ass to manage. They've been making them easier over time to manage throughout the games because nobody likes them. But for the purposes of this video, if you're watching this video, you probably don't need to worry about them right now, okay? I'll leave a link in the description though if you are curious. Alright, so now we're going to talk about what makes a Pokemon unique and look at some different Pokemon sets. So here we have Azumarill, one of my favorite Pokemon, and one we just want to run with of Emerald Rogue on stream. But let's look at these stats. These aren't very impressive stats. So Pokemon are split into tiers for the purposes of online battling, like on Showdown and stuff. You don't need to worry about that for Emerald Rogue. But I just want to look at another Pokemon in the same tier as Azumarill so you can see that Azumarill has kind of bad stats. So another Pokemon in the UU tier of Gen 9 Pokemon with Azumarill is Cobalion. As we can see, Cobalion has way better stats than Azumarill, okay? Like, significantly better in pretty much every category except HP, it has 9 less, but, you know, whatever. So how does Azumarill compete with Cobalion? Well, it's not just stats that are important in Pokemon. The moves are important, typing's important, the ability is extremely important, and the item is extremely important. So first, let's look at abilities. Each Pokemon tends to have 3 abilities, some have 2, a few have 1. But the ability is kind of what dictates how most Pokemon play. It's like something that's like a passive in the background that really influences what a Pokemon excels at, okay? So Azumarill has 3 abilities. It has Thick Fat, which makes fire and ice type moves against this Pokemon deal damage with a half defensive stat. That's actually a good ability on a lot of Pokemon. Azumarill isn't really afraid of fire or ice type moves anyway though normally, so it's kind of a waste. Sap Sipper is another one. This Pokemon's attack is raised by 1 if hit by a grass move, and it has grass immunity. That is actually pretty nice on Azumarill because it's a water type. It'll make you immune to one of your weaknesses and give you a buff if you get hit by a grass move, so that's pretty good. But the real ability we want here for Azumarill, and the reason Azumarill sees play, is this ability here. This Pokemon's attack is doubled with Huge Power. Huge Power is the reason Azumarill is viable. Not a lot of Pokemon get this ability because it's really strong and really simple. Azumarill does not have a great attack stat, but with Huge Power, it does. And Huge Power is doubling the attack stat after all the modifiers, so like an Adamant Nature boosting it. Don't worry too much about EVs and IVs, but just know that they'll be boosting it further. The item we're going to use is going to be boosting it too, so we're doubling a number that we're already going to try and make as big as we can, and it's just Azumarill hits like a truck because of Huge Power is what you need to know, okay? Now on top of that, Azumarill also has access to some really good physical attacks. Now, Pokemon have different sets that they can run, and what a set is, it basically just means different ways that people build the same Pokemon and play them. So using different moves, different items, different abilities. I'm going to show off an Azumarill set that is really easy to wrap your head around first. Okay, so the first move that most, Pokemon gamers probably think of when they think of Azumarill is the move Aqua Jet right here. Now, Aqua Jet, it is a 40 base power water attack. You can see the type of the move here, and then this symbol here means it's a physical attack. That's how you tell on this website or in the games, okay? It has like this symbol here. This symbol here is a special attack, just so you know, okay? And then this symbol is like a status, like a support move, so it's not like an attack that hits the enemy and does damage, basically. So now we know Aqua Jet is a physical water attack. It has a base power of 40, which is not high. A good move typically has around, like 80 power, kind of like this one, somewhere in that range, and then it'll have other things about it that either make it better or worse. So a 40 power water attack isn't that good, but check out the accuracy is 100%. That's really important. Missing in Pokemon really sucks. And it usually goes first. So if you know the move Quick Attack, that usually goes first. It's called a priority move. Priority moves will always go first unless your opponent also clicked a priority move and they're faster than you. So if we were going against like a Pokemon that clicked Quick Attack on the same move we clicked Aqua Jet, and they were faster than us, then in that case they would go first. But most of the time we're going first because we clicked Aqua Jet. Understand? And since Azumarill isn't very fast, he only has, 50 speed? Aqua Jet's a great move for Azumarill, and he hits like a truck, so that 40 base power is going to hit harder than most Pokemon using Aqua Jet would, right? Oh, and I should also say, not all Pokemon of the same type get the same moves, so not all water types have Aqua Jet available to them, okay? That's another common misunderstanding. Pokemon can get all kinds of different moves. They can get moves from outside their type. It's part of what makes Pokemon unique is the moves they're able to learn, okay? Now, another great thing about Aqua Jet on Azumarill. Aqua Jet is a water move, and Azumarill is a water type. That means that Azumarill gets Stab on Aqua Jet. Stab stands for same type attack boost, okay? You get a 50% damage increase just for using a move of the same type as the Pokemon that used it. It's really good. This is one advantage of being multiple types. It gives you 2 stab attack options. So an Azumarill using Aqua Jet, with all the same stats and everything, let's just say theoretically, as like a normal type using Aqua Jet, Azumarill is going to do 50% more damage just because it's the same type as Aqua Jet. Okay, so since Azumarill hits like a truck already and is a water type, Aqua Jet is just kind of insane on it compared to most Pokemon. Our second move is going to be Play Rough. So we'll scroll down here and find Play Rough. Here it is. Play Rough is a physical fairy attack that has 90 power and 90 accuracy with a 10% chance to lower the target's attack. We don't really care about that last part, and the accuracy is a bummer. We'd definitely rather have 100 accuracy. But this is a 90 power stab physical fairy move. That's going to be more than twice as strong as Aqua Jet was damage-wise, at the cost of not always going first like Aqua Jet and possibly missing, 10% chance to miss. But yeah, that's really, really good. So yeah, Azumarill is a water fairy type. Play Rough is a fairy move, so this gets stabbed. Our third move is going to be Superpower. Superpower is another physical attack. It is a fighting move. It has 120 base power and 100% accuracy. So sometimes you'll see moves like this that seem insane, way more base power and perfect accuracy. These normally have a downside. The downside to using Superpower is it lowers your attack and defense until you switch out. And we don't have Stab on this move because we're not a fighting type. But the reason we're using this move is something called Coverage. Basically just trying to have a wide diversity of move types so that you have something good to click in every situation. Pretty normal stuff, easy to understand. So Superpower, it is a bummer that when you use it, you're going to be nerfing yourself a little bit. But sometimes the best thing for you to do is to just secure the kill with Superpower and then maybe switch out on the next turn, depending on what they send out next, Okay, and our last move on this set is going to be Knock Off. Knock Off is a physical dark attack that does 65 damage and is 100% accurate. It also knocks the item off of any enemy it hits. And when it does that, it does bonus damage. So most of your opponents are going to be using items on their Pokemon, or they're just going to lose because items are really important. So when you hit one of their Pokemon that has an item on it, it'll knock the item off, they'll lose the effect of that item for the rest of the battle, and it'll do bonus damage on when it knocks the item off. So this knockoff is just one of the best moves in Pokemon, honestly. You pretty much use it on any Pokemon that gets access to it because it's so strong. It's one of the best things about Dark types. So we're definitely using knockoff as our fourth move here. And then we just have to decide on an item. So items are super important to play style and should dictate how you play Pokemon or a Pokemon. Our Azumarill is just using 4 attacking moves and they're all physical attacks. This makes it a great candidate for a Choice Band. So Choice Bands. Choice Bands increase your physical attack by 1.5x with the caveat that once you click a move, you have to only use that move until you switch out and back in. So we put the Choice Band on. Let's say the Pokemon we're fighting is weak to Aqua Jet, so we click Aqua Jet and kill that Pokemon because we have so much attack, right? When they send out another Pokemon, we can't then click Play Rough if we have a Choice Band on. We have to keep clicking Aqua Jet or switch out. Does that make sense? Now that sounds pretty bad, but the huge attack buff you get from Choice Band makes it worth it here. You know, you might want to use like a defensive Pokemon on your team to switch to after you know, are done using your Azumarill for now, because you are using a Choice Band and you don't want to click Aqua Jet on the next thing they send out. You could switch to your defensive Pokemon, and then when you get a good chance, switch back to Azumarill and, you know, click a different move that's better against that Pokemon. That's kind of the idea, okay? All right, and besides, you know, some more stat editing with EVs and IVs that we don't really need to worry about here, we wouldn't really mess with that in Pokemon Emerald Rogue, or if you're just playing on your own. Like, this would be a great set for your playthrough of a Pokemon game or something, right? So now we're just going to look at one more Azumarill set, a different set, just to show you how two Pokemon can be played differently based on the items and moves you choose and stuff like that, right? A different Azumarill set. So, okay, so on this Azumarill, we're going to once again use the huge power ability. Different Pokemon sets often change abilities, but with Azumarill, huge power is pretty much always the way to go. It's what makes Azumarill, really. There's only like one or two other fully evolved Pokemon that have huge power, and they're not as good as Azumarill. Well, there's a Mega one, but anyway, going off on a tangent here. Now this set is going to be built around a specific move, Belly Drum. Belly Drum lowers your HP by half, but gives you the largest possible attack increase you can get in the game with a move. It is meant to be like an all-in play. So if your opponent doesn't have an answer for Belly Drum, they're probably just going to lose. Remember that stat changes reset when you switch out your Pokemon, so once we Belly Drum with Azumarill, we are pretty much committed to staying in with it to, you know, keep that huge attack buff. We're probably not going to be Belly Drumming again if we switch out and back in, because it's going to lower our health by 50%. But because we're using Belly Drum now, we aren't going to be wanting to use a Choice Band because we're going to be needing to click multiple moves. So in this case, we want to use a different item. We're going to run a Citrus Berry, actually, on this Azumarill. So this Citrus Berry will heal a quarter of our health once we reach half health, aka when we use Belly Drum. So the strategy here is to find a good time to get Azumarill on the field, like preferably when the opponent has a Pokemon out that isn't very threatening to Azumarill. And then we use Belly Drum, we'll automatically heal a little with the Citrus Berry, and then hopefully we sweep their whole team with the Azumarill because we have like the biggest attack buff we could possibly get on it. So for our other three moves, we're definitely still going to want Aqua Jet because Azumarill will still be slow after the Belly Drum, so Aqua Jet's going to let us attack first and hopefully just one-shot everything without them getting a chance to interact. Then for your other two moves, I'd probably just pick, you know, two of the good ones from before, like we would do Play Rough, really strong Fairy Stab move, and probably just Knock Off again. Really good coverage, does a ton of damage to anything that has an item, which is going to be most things, physical move, yeah. And there you go, this is a different Azumarill set, pretty similar to the other one, but, you know, instead of just using a Choice Band and being committed to having that extra damage without having to lower your HP, you know, at the cost of having to stick with one move. This one uses Belly Drum and then heals itself. The big downside to this one is you have to find a good time to switch in and use Belly Drum, and, you know, hopefully your opponent doesn't have something that could force you to switch out. You know, some Pokemon are so defensively strong and might be just the right typing, or, you know, have some quality that makes it so that they're not going to be scared of your Belly Drum Azumarill, and then, you know, your Belly Drum Azumarill becomes a little useless in that instance. So I would say that this one with the Choice Band is more consistent, while this Azumarill has the potential to sweep teams, you know, by itself, but I would say it's less consistent. So that's an example of two different ways to use the same Pokemon. There are other Pokemon with a lot more diverse ways of using them, but I wanted to keep it simple for this video. You guys should now have a better understanding of what goes into a Pokemon and what makes them unique and make them work and stuff. Again, this was mostly for my regular viewers who have just been watching me play Emerald Rogue a bunch. Love you guys, and if this helps anyone else too, that's also great. Alright guys, thanks for watching my video. Like, sub, hype, comment, hit the bell. I don't know if there's anything else you can do to help me. Thanks for watching, amigos. Bye!